Good morning and welcome to Rising. Happy Friday. We have a great show for you today. Erin, welcome back. How you doing, Erin McGuire?
Friday the 13th. It's going to get weird
We
today.
had two of these in a row. I think it was a Friday the 13th last
In
month.
February, yeah, we're doubling down this year.
Does it make you want to watch scary movies or do any of that stuff? Or you
No, it makes me a little extra cautious.
Really?
Yes, I'm not a little stitious. I'm superstitious.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
And it's also if you care about this kind of stuff, Mercury retrograde.
Yeah.
So it's a combo of things.
Yeah. I mean, you had a full moon on this, which we don't have right now, and it'd be like the perfect storm.
Okay.
Coming up on Rising, we'll discuss the Senate once again rejecting a funding bill for the Department of Homeland Security and ongoing debates about the SAVE Act.
Plus, at 85 years old, Congressman James Clyburn has decided to run for re-election.
And Congressman Ro Khanna is criticizing a Washington Post columnist who argued that the congressman was using the Epstein scandal as a campaign stunt. But first, Lindsey, what's in your lens?
Let's talk about it. So 14 days into the war with Iran, the world is watching two things at the same time: missiles in the Middle East and money moving through the global oil market. Today, Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, issued his first message, or actually it was yesterday, and the message was unmistakable. Iran says it will keep the Strait of Hormuz blocked, one of the most important oil choke points in the world, and continue attacking U.S. bases in the region. In the statement attributed to him, the government said, quote, "The lever of the blocking Strait of Hormuz must undoubtedly continue to be used." It also vowed for revenge for Iranian, quote, "martyrs," referring to leaders and civilians killed since the U.S.-Israeli bombing campaign began. Now, that narrow waterway between Iran and Oman normally carries about 1/5 of the world's oil supply. When it closes, the global economy feels it almost immediately. Oil prices surged back above $100 a barrel, and Americans are already seeing the ripple effect at the pump. Just last month, the average gas price was about $2.30 a gallon nationally. Now it's around $3.60 nationally, according to AAA, a more than 50% jump. What's striking is how the political messaging around that spike has shifted. Now, President Trump built much of his economic argument around low energy prices, but now, as the conflict pushes oil higher, he's framing it a little differently. In a Truth Social post yesterday, he wrote, quote, "The United States is the largest oil producer in the world, by far. So when oil prices go up, we make a lot of money." But the reality is a little more complicated than that. Higher oil prices don't just boost production revenue, they raise costs across the entire economy. Goldman Sachs warned this week that sustained price spikes could push inflation higher, slow economic growth, and increase unemployment by the end of the year. And the economic story is only part of it. The human toll is also mounting. The Pentagon says 7 U.S. service members have been killed and 140 American troops injured so far. Iran's counterattacks have killed 13 people in Israel and 6 in the UAE. In Iran, more than 1,200 people have died in the strikes, according to the Iranian Red Crescent, and the UN says as many as 3.2 million people have been displaced. One of the most disturbing developments involves a U.S. strike that reportedly hit an Iranian elementary school on the first day of the conflict. Preliminary findings suggest outdated intelligence may have misidentified the building as a military target. More than 170 people, mostly children, were killed. Now, all this is unfolding while the explanation for the war itself remains murky. We've heard shifting rationales, evolving objectives, and mixed messaging from Washington about what success actually looks like. The president told supporters this week at a Kentucky event, quote, "We won," while also a few minutes later saying, quote, "We've got to finish the job." 14 days in, the world is left with a dangerous combination: rising oil prices, rising casualties, and still no clear answer about how this war ends or what victory even means. So I think as we keep hearing messaging about what Iran is willing to do, that's the biggest concerning part, because I don't know when the relentlessness would stop. So even if the missions are, a lot of people have a problem with President Trump's stated missions now, but even if they are what he says they are, what would make him think that Iran would stop? Like, why would his son, who's considered more adamant than his father, stop down any of what the mission is, which is to continue to be anti everything that the U.S. is? And not to mention Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, announced yesterday that we remove sanctions from Russia so that we can have access to more oil. So we're almost like gifting Russia. And that's exactly what they want. That's Iran's ally in this whole process.
As long as they're not fueling the proxies or the Iranian regime, they might be close, but they haven't done necessarily anything as the Russians to provide military support or means of support up to this point with the Iranian aggression. I completely agree with your point on the messaging, though. More broadly, listen, the Republican base is still 85 to 95%. You look at the polling in Trump's camp. So if he says today that we're marching for this reason or we're marching for that reason, they'll march right with him. But for the larger country, for the larger world and global economy, the inconsistency in the messaging, the movement in the messaging, the fluidity in the messaging when we should be so tight is really the reflexiveness you're seeing in the markets as well right now. And one thing I really take issue with is the president saying, like, let's be strong and boats go through the Strait of Hormuz, show some backbone. Right, there might be insurance on that vessel and for what that vessel cost-wise for the owner. But that doesn't mean for the lives of the people on the boat. That means that that captain who has a family to go home to, those other ship crew, they don't necessarily have any payout at the end other than their lives being gone because they would have gone through the Strait of Hormuz. The inability for us to have total control the way that they assumed is one thing. And about the Iranian leadership, we're not doing anything, no one is globally, to provide the Iranian people the means to overtopple their regime and take them out. We're not providing political cover. We're not providing monetary cover. We're not providing arms cover. And I'm not saying that the United States should start to arm the Iranian people to topple their regime, but of course they're not going to run outside and start trying to topple their regime right now. The last time they did that, 40,000 people got killed by the Iranian regime.
And I think the biggest question for me is what would the next steps look like? Because it doesn't seem like Ayatollah Khamenei's son will relax in any specific way. And it also doesn't seem like the Iranians, like you said, have enough power and organization to take over the Iranian National Guard, I believe, which is a Revolutionary Guard, which will be in charge if we kill every single leader. There's still an entire military that's like next in line. Yeah. So I don't really understand what the next steps really look like. And I question about why President Trump years ago ripped up that Iran nuclear deal. There's an argument about how terrible he thought it was. But at the end of the day, it stopped Iran from compiling uranium, which would lead them to have this nuclear bomb. If the goal is not regime change and truly is wiping out nuclear capabilities, well, they weren't acting on any nuclear capabilities or even stockpiling to the level to create a nuclear bomb.
I don't think
years
that's
ago.
Correct, though, because we just saw that earlier this year when the president struck Iran's nuclear ability and capabilities, they were enriching uranium. They never cared about the JCPOA, the Iranian deal between the Obama administration. The Iranian people, the Iranian regime never stood true to that, and they were paid millions and billions of dollars on pallets of cash in order to try to do this. Iran has never been a good actor in this. So the assumption, if it is about oil or it's about anything else, or if it's about, ending their nuclear proliferation, that Iran deal was terrible for the world. And it put a sunset date on it anyways. So even to say to the Iranian regime, hey, we're going to go ahead and let you not do this right now. We're going to keep an eye on you to make sure you're not enriching uranium so you don't have a nuclear bomb. And then we're like, but when the deal's up, and you can do whatever you want. Iran never abided by those rules anyways. They were enriching uranium, and they continue to try to do it now.
Well, they were enriching enough uranium to power the country. That's what
they're going to say.
That's what nonpartisan people who reviewed the deal, even Trump himself in 2017 said, yeah, I guess they're following by the text. And he had some other issues with what they were doing. But my question is, what does he want to see then? What would his deal look like? Because if you believe that Ayatollah Khamenei, the new younger son, is going to come to the table and say, yes, okay, whatever you say. I don't think that's as close as we get to a deal with a dictatorship, authoritarian leader.
I don't think Trump wants a deal with Iran. I think Trump wants to blow Iran off the map and have new leadership come in. There's just not what we're seeing publicly, and who knows what's going on in the Situation Room and behind closed doors. We're not seeing that path forward right now publicly, which I think, to your first point on this, is exactly correct. We're all over the place. How do we know what the goal is anymore? Is it a deal? Is it completely destroying them? What are we doing here?
And it seems like Iran's and actually because their leadership has been on air saying, then come on in the country, put boots on the ground. And so that seems like the only way to get the goal. If the stated goal is that President Trump wants to wipe them off the map, you have to put boots on the ground.
And that's a huge line to cross, and one that when it comes to precious American lives, is that really what we want to be doing as a country? I don't think so.
We're going to talk about this a lot more. Two battles playing out in the Senate, one over Homeland Security funding, the other over election security. Where they stand as some federal workers prepare for another missed paycheck. We'll be right back.